Spec Talk. This one is going to be something. I don't even know how to frame it yet. It's just going to be a very, very memorable episode. Today, we're taking things to kind of a different level. We're not really going to be talking about spec sections and links so much today, as we're going straight to the source and having a conversation with the managing director of RIB North America, Damon Bridge. Now, before we get to introducing and welcoming Damon properly, there is just a few things that I wanted to housekeep before we get started, because once we get started, I don't think we're going to be slowing down one little bit. So let me get my screen share going here, and we will, excuse me, welcome everybody to the show properly. Once my screen share decides to work, it's just spinning. All right. So with you, as always, is myself, Dory Azar, architectural consultant and product specialist here at RIB Software. And joining me is Alex Baer, the trusty, reliable Alex Baer, strategic account executive and team lead. How you doing, Alex?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for asking, Dory. How are you?
Awesome. Oh, I'm doing dynamite. I'm really, really excited for today. So this is good. I'm wearing my new SpecLink t-shirt today. So we'll see if this turns out to be my lucky t-shirt. As always, Alex and I would love to connect with you guys on LinkedIn. So if you're looking to build your network, Alex and I are definitely there, ready to connect with you, given the chance. Now, there is a special upcoming presentation that we've got. If you are going to CSI National in Cleveland in a few weeks, I will be there. There will be a bunch of us from the RIB team there. And Amy Baker and I will be doing a presentation on social media for architects and spec writers. That'll be Thursday morning, October 16th at 9:15 a.m. If you don't get a chance to attend that, you're going to miss out. But if you don't get the chance to attend it and you see us hanging around, definitely stop by, say hi. I'd love to meet everybody. I get to know all your names in the comment sections, but I'd love to start putting faces to the names. So moving on, today's chat with Damon is going to be a big one. We're going to try to cover a lot of ground, but in general, we're going to talk about where we've been, where we are, and where we're going as a company, the growth and success of SpecLink and SpecLive. And of course, as always, we're going to be taking your questions in the Q&A for any of those things that we might not be covering. So our special guest today, Damon Bridge. Damon has been with RIB for over 7 years and has played a key role in driving the company's impressive growth in North America. With a background that spans fintech, insurance, telecom, and construction, he has led large teams, launched dozens of products, and shaped strategic direction across multiple industries. Damon began his journey with BSD as a management consultant before joining full-time in 2018, eventually serving as CEO for BSD. Originally from England, Damon came to the US on a golf scholarship, how impressive is that, and went on to earn his MBA before building a career with leading SaaS and DaaS companies. When he's not focused on technology and growth, Damon enjoys family life in Atlanta, spending time with his wife, Christine, and their children, Danielle and Ethan. Please welcome the incomparable Damon Bridge. Damon, welcome. Welcome.
Thank you, Dora. I think that's the longest I've ever stayed quiet for in a meeting. So congratulations.
Well, that's all going to change right now, because we're going to be turning it over to you in just a second. Before we dive into our first question, we are going to launch a poll question to get the audience engaged here. So we are going to start with, when you think of SpecLink, what do you want to know more about? You want to know more about the product roadmap and new features? Do you want to know about the copyright and ownership of your specs? Or do you want to know how SpecLink fits into your firm's workflow? We will be able to talk about all of these things today. I am so surprised at these results. I never would have. Okay. This is unbelievable, guy. I would have lost a bet on. I'm not much of a betting man, but I would have lost a bet. The copyright, I would have thought copyright and ownership of specs was going to be a bigger answer, but it's looking like people are interested in the product roadmap and new features. So why don't we just dive right in here, Damon? And I want to start with kind of a bigger question that helps. Like I've been with the company almost a year and a half now, and I still hear people refer to it as BSD. So can you clarify the relationship between BSD, RIB, and even how Schneider Electric sort of factors into that equation?
Yeah, absolutely, Dory. I'll try and keep this somewhat concise. So for about 40 years, we were building systems design, BSD. I was fortunate enough to join that company for the last couple of years before we sold to RIB, which is a company out of Germany. At the time was run by a gentleman called Todd Wolf, and has since sort of iterated and grown and consolidated over the last few years into a larger software organization. I run the North American portion of that. There are 4 regional leaders around the globe that do that and report up into our various C-level execs in Germany and Dubai and around the world. So we're a pretty global company. Schneider Electric, excuse me on my dates, but probably 3 to 4 years ago now, bought RIB in a couple of chunks, eventually buying all of us. So we're wholly owned by Schneider Electric. They really, we more or less play with the other software firms in Schneider's portfolio, right? So Aviva is the largest one. ETAP is the other major software player. So we are considered part of like the Aviva software group, but we are our own entity. We're the kind of the commercial construction focused group of those 3, ultimately operating under RIB globally, under the leadership of Renee Wolf out of Stuttgart in Germany.
Okay, so yeah, that's fantastic clarification. So what we saw from the first poll is that the viewers seem to be definitely interested in the direction of SpecLink, SpecLive, and the company in general. How do we, and I know we kind of tout ourselves as a sort of a company that listens to our users. And while you can't constantly be updating, we do quarterly updates to SpecLink, but can you talk a little bit about how we sort of take the user input and assess it and kind of put it out as part of our quarterly updates, and maybe that'll sort of lead some direction or conversation around the direction of the software.
Yeah, so I guess the way we approach software development is kind of multi-pronged. The basis of what I think you just asked in that question would be, we have a group in our development team that is always and only focused on customer tickets. So whether you call us, whether you email us, however you contact us, chat, everything results in a ticket. Every ticket gets dispositioned, evaluated, prioritized. Obviously there's a queue, right? So some take longer than others. But ultimately, one thing we specifically decided to do several years ago was say, look, this development group, hands off. Like that's all they're going to do. If we want them to work on cool new stuff or whatever that might be, it's important enough that we have a group dedicated to that and that alone. So we take that very seriously. The other thing I would say, when we start to look at larger items, things that maybe are more of a feature enhancement, something we might add on to the product that's fairly significant, like a collaboration capabilities, for example. I think it's fair to say we don't really do anything in SpecLink without customer consultation of some sort, whether it's formalizing user groups, alpha testing, beta testing, customer advisory boards. So I think I've said this to you before, Dara, we're like the opposite to Steve Jobs, right? Like Steve Jobs, kind of believed that they could create these incredible things at Apple, which they did, right? At least sometimes. Right. And people would love them. And they certainly were successful. I think for every Apple, frankly, Apple today probably is a good example of one that's not doing so well on that, as far as real new innovation is concerned. But for every Apple, there's kind of 1,000 failed companies that thought they knew better than their customers. And it was pretty trendy for a while to sort of say, hey, we're going to do all these cool things and we're going to tell you how to do this because we know best. We have never followed that model. And as long as I'm here and have influence over that, we will not. I just don't believe that's the right way to do things. I think constant customer feedback at all levels.
Okay, I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you about user feedback in a second, but we got 3 questions in a row about what does RIB stand for. People are curious, and so can you? Because I know it's not a straightforward answer. Can you answer that for us, please?
So there is like a American version of this, and it's something in Alex. Do you know what it is? I can't even
Revolution in buildings.
There it is. But that's kind of BS. It doesn't mean that. It's a German expression. and it was rebranded as Revolution in Buildings because it sounded good in English, but it's actually a German words, and I don't remember what they are. We've just always
Can you
been
pronounce that
RIB.
for us, Damon, in German? Do you know the German?
RIB.
Got me fooled.
Interestingly, we were always an only RIB at the beginning. Schneider tend to refer to us as RIB. So we kind of answered a RIB now as well.
Yeah. And I hear that a lot.
RIB. Yep.
I hear that in the wild a lot too, is rib, you know, because there's no periods between the letters. So it does look,
it
just rib.
It doesn't really help marketing when it comes to search. You start looking for rib things in Atlanta, and you're going to find some different results. You know, you're going to end up at Fox Brothers probably.
There's also a couple of comments about people asking you to turn up your volume, and some people are having no audio at all. So I think most of us are hearing each other. So it might be an individual problem that people are experiencing. So Damon, back to the questions. What is an example, or two or three, where we've taken direct user feedback and incorporated it into a version of SpecLink?
There's a lot. There's an easy one. The lady you just put on the screen gets referenced quite a bit for her contribution to SheetSpecs. So, I mean, God, I can even tell the story of SheetSpecs in that it was actually came up while sitting across the table at MSR with a couple of our sales folks, and Amy Baker sort of saying, it's about time somebody had standardized, repeatable solution for SheetSpecs. He's like, you know, it's kind of the dirty little secret of a lot of design firms. They make a little bit of money on the side. That may not be the most glamorous projects, but there's a lot of them about, and you know, most firms are doing them at some level, and there's no real standard for it. And you know, we try not to be holier than thou, if you like. We certainly like to make sure we're addressing the standards of people. We also like to create solutions that are useful and people need. And it was a relatively simple thing to do for us. So kind of brought it back. We ended up getting some, I think Ross from SLAM gave us a lot of feedback on that, as well as a couple of other folks, because you don't ever want to just say, okay, let's just build it for Amy, right? There's multiple other people that had some thoughts on how they would handle that, because you're trying to develop it for everybody. But that was one we did in about 3 months, I think. And it's turned out to be really heavily used. So that was a nice one. I could go like Beth Roshane has actually done a lot of work with us and things you don't really see as much, like more on the database side, how we manage data, how we manage information, and how we manage SpecLink, right? So, you know, you've got Eric and some of those folks when it talks about linking and notes and the way we just manage day-to-day usage of SpecLink and how we organize things. So, I mean, I don't think I could come up with anything that we've done that didn't come from a customer or wasn't validated by a customer.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, it's these people are using the software. Like, listen to them, right? It's kind of a almost easy way of progressing. We've got a great question here, Damon, that I know is something we wanted to touch upon today. So why don't we get into it now? The question is, will you please explain how the technical content is decided upon or arrived at? Who writes the content? How is the content quality checked? And do you include input from industry experts?
Sure. So we have a team of, I always hate quoting numbers because we have some full-time contractors and people that work 32 hours a week on this group, and we have a bunch of full-time employees, but there's somewhere between 15 and 20 is a good way of saying it, folks that maintain our master library of content, US and Canada. We actually have a Canadian master as well, hopefully people are familiar with. Scott Mize runs the architectural sections, and Joe Moreland runs the MEP sections, the engineering side. In effect, I guess I've delegated full authority to Joe and Scott over our specs. So they decide exactly what goes in, exactly what doesn't go in. I'm not a spec writer, so my opinion doesn't really mean much, right? Their job is to protect our clients and to make sure our clients' interests are always met by what we're putting into that spec and served in the best way they can. what we've augmented over the last few years there is a much more rigorous progress of tracking exactly what got edited when and how rigorously and how thoroughly. And a guy called Tyler Endicott, who runs our project management organization, project management organization, amongst other things, has really like helped with dashboarding workflow so that we can sort of continue to manage how we are addressing those specs. But ultimately, that group, and I know Scott and Joe heavily empower their people on that team, as they should. They are the arbiter of spec-linked content. They are the people we trust. They're from the field. They're trained architects. They're trained engineers. They've practiced, and they're the people that own the content spec. It's also we're known for our formatting and our, I guess, conciseness in style, right? That is very consciously decided upon. That was something that, the specs team wanted as kind of our signature in the industry, and they believe that, I could have written you a short note, but I didn't have time, so I wrote you a long one, kind of approach to things, right? Because being concise is oftentimes a lot harder than being long form. Takes a little bit more thought. So that was something they wanted to do and pride themselves on. So that's our team. They've been in place a while, most of them, and we're very happy with what they do.
Well, that's a good sign.
So Damon, I'll kind of interject here. So
please, yeah.
We have another question. I know this is a little bit of an interesting topic, but we've got a question about how does RIB plan to implement AI into SpecLink? So I know we could probably talk about that for hours.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if I was to tell you I knew, I'd be lying, because I don't think anyone really knows, right? Like AI is evolving so quickly, yet also really slowly, right? Like the actual impact on our day-to-day lives isn't really very much yet, but it looks like it's gonna be, right? So we're very, very interested and we're very committed to it. We've got SpecLink.ai was out there for a while. I think it moved onto a corporate page of one of the SpecLink pages on the corporate website, where we had like 3 agent-style AI solutions out there that people could sign up for and play with. I think, if I may take a small step backwards, Alex, I think when AI first really came to prominence, the thought is this general intelligence approach, almost like human intelligence, right? Where you could loosely define a problem or have something, hey, think about this, how would you, was kind of the way it was going, right? So like companies like OpenAI, like put out this information, they have no idea how it's going to get used, right? It's just, here's this capability. Where it's gone recently is, again, this more agent approach, where it's really good at solving a specific problem, like write this email response to me because Dory sent me something and I don't know how to reply back to him, right? Just kidding. But, it's become very like short-term practical. But I think in the near term, we're looking at things like that. We're also looking at how does it more generally help the process of spec writing, right? So QA, efficiency, ability to learn, like our first-time user experience could be massively improved with the use of AI, helping someone through how to set up projects, helping someone through not making mistakes. The experience spec writer on your shoulder. I mean, I know I'm going all over the place, but there's so many things that could potentially touch. Where I think we are a little bit unique, maybe not unique, but in an interesting spot. Specifications by their nature have to be incredibly accurate. An simple error in specs can cost millions of dollars, right? We know it, we've seen it. I don't think anyone's at the point of trusting a bot on that level of expertise across 1,000 pages of content, right? So it's going to be a while before like AI is writing specs to any level that anyone can trust. And what we're trying to figure out right now is how do we use some of the things that you've not chosen a drop-down box where you've got to choose a specific product. You've not, when you've built this type of building before, you've used these type of roofing materials, but in this one, it's the wall.
So it's suggestionary based.
Yeah.
data
all that kind of thing,
analytics.
right? So how do we help that novice spec writer, and how do we make life more efficient for the more expert spec writer, right?
Sure.
And again, we put some tools out there that people could try. I don't know if you can still sign up for those. There was a window for a while there. I expect if you give Nish a twist his arm, he'll let you play with it, and those things. But that was just kind of our foray into that, Alex. And I think it's definitely going to change a lot of what happens in the world. But
Sure.
It's a matter of debate exactly how far that goes.
Well, if anybody can do it right, I believe it will be SpecLink. So
I'm a big believer in the movie WALL-E. WALL-E is the most prophetic movie of our time, I think. Will soon be like synthetic blobs moving around spaceships. Hopefully
not yet,
not.
though. Not yet. I'm not ready for that.
Right.
Damon, I want to take the conversation in a content direction. So we got a question from Jim Smith asking what, and this kind of ties into sort of our products, directories, pay to play. I know definitely wanted to touch on pay to play today. Jim's question is, what determines which manufacturers have their products listed in a section or have a proprietary section of their own? So what determines that? And if we can sort of start talking about the traditional product, why we're not a traditional product directory, and can we talk about the content now and how that, are we ready for that? Are we
a lot of questions
warmed up now?
If we break that up, because I could probably talk for the next hour. Where do you want to start? Where do you want to go? It's just, you just do pay for play and get them out of the way, because
so let's answer Jim's questions first. So what determines, and this ties into pay to play, so what determines which manufacturers have their products listed in a section or a proprietary section of their own?
It's more who than what. Our specs team do, under Scott and Joe's guidance. Our sales team never do. It's entirely up to our specs team. So we are often daily approached by people that want to be in SpecLink. We have a formal vetting process that everything that goes into SpecLink goes through, whether it's paid content, whether it's content that we're assessing for ourselves, right? Our specs team goes through a process of understanding, does it meet the criteria? And it's not always exactly the same. There's certainly guidelines, but different products have different evolution cycles, right? So it's not always exactly the same. But if it's not manufactured in the right place, it doesn't have the right codes, it hasn't met the right standards for performance, it's not been in the market for very long. It's all considered by our specs team, who are ultimately there, and our first priority is always the spec writer client, right? Always. And nothing goes in SpecLink that is not vetted and approved by that team. And that's true for all the listings that were there before a manufacturer business existed and since. It was always designed for the spec writer. So if we believe that, you need these 5 products under curtain wall, they're going to be in there, whether they're paid or not. And ultimately, if they're paid, then we can work with that client to make sure it's up to date, make sure they've got more supplemental information, make sure it's easier for you to find the information you are, right? So, that's really the core of that. But it's entirely up to the spec writing team.
So the misconception is, if somebody shows up to our office with a truck of money, that will automatically put their product in SpecLink, and that's not the case. The accusation of pay to play is. Let's address that for the viewers.
Yeah, I don't want to imply that other products out there have unvetted products in them, because they do. So it's not an implication; it's a fact. We don't. We vet everything that goes into SpecLink. Every single thing. Now, obviously, some things are a bit older than others, right? So at some point they were vetted. The sad irony, frankly, is that we don't collect all that information, because if we collected all that vetting information, we'd have one hell of a database of really interesting product information. But we tend to vet it and say, yeah, it's good, and then we put it in, and then we throw away all this incredible product research that we do on the side. So that's something about product development wise we talk about a lot. Is how do we actually collect that stuff without making it such a rigorous process that our content team will resign because they're spending hours and hours of time filling out forms. So but yeah, it's a common misconception. It's probably the thing that annoys me the most, if I'm honest. we don't give ourselves credit for this very well, but it's absolutely, and if Scott and Joe were on here, I'm 100% sure they would tell you that I've yet to involve myself in the decision around what gets put in SpecLink and what doesn't in the kind of 5 years, 6 years I've been running this business, because I don't think I should.
Right. So this is another one that's of interest. Is SpecLink used outside of the U.S.? So that's always an interesting topic, I think.
Oh, so I'm going to add to that, because the gentleman asking that question is bilingual, and I've had conversations with Christian about SpecLink in other languages. So yes, we definitely know SpecLink is in Canada and the US, but sorry to jump in, Alex, but I did want to add to that, because I think that's coming from somewhere. Has there ever been conversation of SpecLink in other languages?
Yeah, huge amounts of conversation. In fact, some of our customers use it in other languages. I know for a fact that Prologis has a Portuguese version. WSP, I think, are writing a French version. If I'm not to drop those names, but I just did. For themselves.
Right.
So yeah, there's been a lot of talk about it. It's hard for me to. I mean, I know what I think the solution to it is, that it kind of gives away a little bit of our product roadmap, like future-wise. But I mean, I think we're going to get to the point, instead of us curating it, right, which would take a lot of time, a lot of effort, and then you've got to keep it up to date, or it's useless in a matter of years. I would much rather create a more open platform in SpecLink that enables us to share maybe masters that are created by our customers who are interested in monetizing them that way. So if, for example, a French-Canadian company had a French master, and maybe 3 French-Canadian companies have 3 French masters, you could eventually make those available via SpecLink. They're already in SpecLink. Now, obviously, you've got a million licensing things, and you've got contracts, and you got there's a lot of stuff around that. So I'm not trying to oversimplify that, but it is not that difficult of a thing to accomplish. And it's something we've talked about, I think is a better solution, because it potentially opens up everything at that point, as opposed to us doing, French one day and Spanish and German, and taking us years and years to move on that path. So I think there's some options there. It's just something that we talk about a lot.
Excellent. We just got a call. Nobody's calling. Got a comment from Joanne that said, Dory, the reason my company went with SpecLink is because we felt that RIB was vetting the materials and being objective about it. That and the research your team put into the reference standards. So that is wonderful to hear, Joanne. I really, really appreciate that from JRMA. And I also wanted to acknowledge Amy Baker had said a comment too, and it's kind of going back when we were talking about content, but she says that occasionally the content team reaches out to their practitioners for opinions and experiences with products. So they're even doing research in that direction too. So that's maybe a little more evidence towards, it's not just like, oh, sure, you've got a product, sure, come on in. It's not about putting the most products in our platform. It's about putting the right products, or the products that we deem appropriate and suitable for use. So I didn't realize that our team was reaching out to practitioners. So that's really, really great to hear.
Yeah, and I can share a little bit more there too, just from a strategy standpoint. So, Amy's been a part of that. Which is nice of her to bring it up. She's far from the only one. So for us, I mentioned we have this team, 15 to 20 people that do this, and that includes some QA people. I kind of missed that part of the question. I apologize. We have 3 full-time specs QA people that make sure that everything's perfect before publishing. But ultimately, it's really hard to find those people. They are outstanding folks, subject matter experts in their fields, but you've got to really love doing this side of the job to come work for us and do that all day, every day. And ultimately, the best way we've decided to make that a larger audience is to look at our customers. So sometimes we will outsource work under the guidance of our specs team to folks like Amy. I won't start naming names, but I could. As she wrote it, as Amy's also going to be like betting me today that she got more attendees to her spec talk than I did. Might as well throw her out there. Ultimately, looking at that as our next resource, right? Because just continuing to add full-time people is great, but if we can put work back in our customers' hands, if we can make it easier to write guide specs, make it something that we do, understanding the SpecLink way. We have a QA team that vets all of it as well. So we found some success doing that, and it's something that I think we will continue to do while maintaining that core in-house team of folks who have been so valuable to us.
Excellent. I would love to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Alex.
No, I was just going to kind of add in. So I have a question here. So, or from a user. So, is the absence of a major manufacturer's products in a section solely an indication that they didn't ask to be included? And I would mention to that. And Damon, I'll let you, put in your response there. But one thing that I think we're very good at is that we do have a really good open door policy with our content team. So we do have direct access to that team that you can, if you see something that's in a sort of an omission that you think is important, I know that we have a team here that's here to listen, and if there's something that you product or manufacturer that you don't see, right, we want to know. But Damon, what would your response be?
No, that's a great response, Alex. I mean, it's
okay.
Yeah, we're gonna miss things.
Sure.
So sometimes there's a reason. Like, I won't name names, but there is one manufacturer I can think of that was quite controversially removed from our platform, but they told us to remove them from our platform. So I don't know why. Had a change of management, and I don't know. So we were asked to remove all references to their products. We didn't want to, but we were respectful of their wishes. So
Sure.
Often we don't actually remove hardly anyone from SpecLink. It's a very rare thing. We tend to add much more than we really. But if there's someone missing, by all means, like, that's another thing. I talked about products and how they manage these inbound tickets, and you can do the same thing with content. That will just get dispositioned out to our content team, and they will decide whether or not they want to do that. And we try to give everybody at least a response. That's the goal. It's not always 100% possible, but we try and make sure that I promise you everything that you put in gets looked at.
So for clarity then, Jim has come back with another question. Says, so is the absence of a major manufacturer's products in a section solely an indication that they didn't ask to be included? So if there's a product that's not in SpecLink, okay.
It could just be an oversight on our part. It could be that when SpecWriter A wrote that section, they put a main 2 or 3 in and enough acceptable alternates for them to feel happy with that content. And maybe that's manufacturer has grown significantly in the time following that, and they probably should be in there now, but they weren't at that time. Or I don't know. I mean, Alex is, talk about how long I've been here. Alex has been here twice as long as I have. And, I'm sure he's run into that plenty of times too, right? It could be a multitude of reasons. It's usually not intentional necessarily. It's to your point. Let us know if there's a list. Like, let us know. I promise we'll go through them, and we'll do our best to get them in there for you. Our goal is to make it as easy as possible for you. But there are weird situations like the one I described. So if that's the case, we'll probably just tell you that, hey, we can't put them in there. That's
your problem is with them. Yeah. I'm just gonna launch another poll question here, and the next poll question is going to be about misconceptions that you've heard about SpecLink. We kind of touched upon that in this last segment here. So as a misconception you've heard about SpecLink is that it's only for large firms, that it locks me into one way of working, or it doesn't cover my discipline. Be really curious, and the content team might be interested in seeing where these. I have no guess. I like to guess the answers, what I think they're going to be. I don't really have a good guess on this one. But it seems that one is kind of dominating the conversation here. We'll just give it another second here for everyone to give us a vote, give us their vote here. Here we go. So a little over half say it locks me into one way of working. With the other two almost evenly split, saying it either doesn't cover my discipline or it's only for large firms. Damon, would you like to address the large firm and perhaps the approximate large firm versus small firm ratio on how SpecLink is subscribed to?
That's a really interesting. We're kind of the opposite, actually. We've only recently been a great solution for large firms, frankly, over the last sort of 3 or 4 years of development. Historically, BSD and early RIB was a small firm focused company. We have, if you look at SpecLink's user profile, gosh, something like, I should know this off the top of my head because I can picture the graph, but there's something like 70% of our clients have 1 or 2 seats. I mean, we are a 1 or 2 seat customer base. That is our main customer base. Now that has changed with the addition of collaboration features that have appealed a lot to the larger firms, with the addition of making it much easier to create your own divisions and sections and import your information and make it kind of SpecLink friendly. We've got some firms that we previously would have had a hard time getting on the platform. So there has been a lot of development, hopefully always with the eye of it should help everyone on the platform. We try not to do anything specifically for like one group of people, unless it's really necessary. So yeah, that would surprise. That's definitely we've had a lot of success in large firms, so I don't want to walk away from that one. But it's, I mean, I think kind of go together for me. We've tried to be as neutral of a platform as we can. We don't try to tell you how to write specs. In fact, if you look at SpecLink, and this is almost embarrassing to admit, but I mean, it's supposed to look a bit like Word. Like, there's a reason it looks the way it does, because most people are coming from Word, and we try to make it as open of a platform as Word is. It's kind of the idea, was like, you decide how you want to do things, which again, I think has helped us in the market, frankly, competitively, because of that. But yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, I'm sure you have to make some decisions, right? That say, hey, X and Y happens, right? So you're always going to have some sort of methodology. But from the customers I know and have spent time with, they all use it slightly different ways. We don't mandate that you go in and, I'll be careful what I say. You don't mandate that you go in and do anything in a certain order.
I'll stop you there. Cut Damon's microphone off. That's there was a comment earlier that I didn't get to reading to, but somebody did mention the lack of F-bombs so far in the webinar. Because so somebody did read my my LinkedIn post, perhaps suggesting that there might be a slip of the tongue here and there, but I mean, we don't want to script it, so we'll wait for it to slip out naturally. Next thing that I want to talk about, and I was kind of when I started here really interested in this as well, is copyright and content ownership. And I was really surprised to hear how like flat out, like, it's your content, like that's it. So can you talk a little bit about ownership, content, copyright, who owns what, and just the whole conversation around that?
Yeah. So it's a tricky one, right? Because anytime you're talking about legal matters, I start sweating. But ultimately, I mean, you're paying for a service, okay? So we'll look at it this way. When you buy SpecLink, you are buying content and software, effectively. You can use it how you want to use it. You can export it in any way you want to export it, and you can take it wherever you want to take it because you've paid for it. You've paid for that service. Not only that, but I can't accept liability responsibility for that content, right? So if you write it in SpecLink and there's an error and something goes wrong with that building, we can't take that on, right? That's the firm's responsibility. So I don't know how I could own that content without taking responsibility for the liability of that content, for one, which absolutely would just break our business, right? You just can't do that. So one, I philosophically just disagree with the fact that if you pay for a service, it's yours. You should be able to do what you want with it, to the point where, if you pay for a service, it's yours. You should be able to do what you want with it, to the point where, if you pay for a service, it's yours. You should be able to do what you want with it, to the point where, if you pay for a service, it's yours. You should be able to do what you want with it, to the point where, if you pay for a service, it's yours. You should be able to do what you want with it, to the point where, if you pay for a service, it's yours. You should be able to do what you want with it, to the point where, if you pay for a service, it's yours. You should be able to do what you want with it, to the point where, if you pay for a service, it's yours. You should be able to do what you want with it, to the point where, if you pay for a service, it's yours. You should be able to do what you want with it, to the point where, if you pay for a service, it's yours. You should be able to do what you want with it, to the point where, if you pay for a service, it's yours. You should be able to do what you want with it, to the point where, if you pay for a service, it's yours. You should be able to do what if you decide you want to leave us and go to one of our competitors, we will help you export all of your stuff. And, you know, we don't want you to leave that stuff behind, right? It's your projects. You can get into the, you know, I always grew up the term, but the articles of whatever it is that the basically means that architecture firms have to own all the content that they put out, right? It's, you know, it's legally theirs as well, right? So it's
right.
I don't really understand that concept, but just purely on a business level, right? Like, it's, if I buy something, I buy a dictionary, I own that dictionary, right? Like Oxford English don't come after me for using it.
And I suppose it'd be a lot like, but there must be issues around it with other platforms. But I imagine it's like a drafting software and like a creative thing, where if you gave me the tools to draw a line, you don't own that line. You just gave me the tool to be able to do that, and you would take responsibility.
Sure.
John,
it's a better analogy than my dictionary analogy.
That's okay. That's okay. John comes in with a great comment that says there are no other competitors that are worth leaving RIB for. Is that not the sweetest comment we've? What? I wish we had prizes or like candy that we could share right now. That's fantastic. Christian commented, "I've never heard of a spec writer being sued. When it happens, do they blame SpecLink and bring you into the lawsuit? Has that ever?"
Well, if we said that we owned all our content and you couldn't use it, then they probably should. But we don't. So yeah, you're very much, when you sign up for SpecLink, you're basically agreeing that you're taking responsibility for the content that you publish at the end of a project, whether it's, you know, how much of it's sourced from our content or your own, right? It's just would be a bit of a problem on our end. It's not really the spec writer getting sued, but the firm, right? So it's the overall project, and I don't come from that background, so it's like, you know, Dory, you're probably better versed in that than I am. But it's you know, I don't hear a lot of our customers getting sued very often, but it's something that I know concerns a lot of them, and ultimately it is a legal document that you're issuing. So
it's a high liability profession, so the threat is real. We've got a sort of a pointy question, not pointy. Let me ask the question and see how you would take it. So Herbert's chiming in and asking, not beating around the bush, how do you respond to questions of RIB specs remaining non-proprietary or greatly influenced when it's owned by such a large global company like Schneider Electric?
Yeah, I can understand why people would have that concern. It's hard for me to not. I really liked being owned by Schneider. So I've had every ownership model you can think of in my career, from publicly traded to PE firm owned to privately owned. Schneider are easily the best owner I've ever worked for, mostly because they stay completely out of our business. They are absolutely a big customer of ours. They're a believer in what we do, and they want their content in our system, and they pay for it just like everyone else does. That's putting that amount of proprietary specs in there, right? Because they see that as a huge database of information they can use, that we are writing and procuring as spec writers, which they believe is a benefit to them as well, right? They also are aware that if we ever show any sign of favoritism and are no longer agnostic, that is very negatively impactful to the value of our business that they own, right? So they are happy for us to work with ABB and Eaton and Honeywell and anyone else that falls into that realm. And, you know, I actually have written documentation that I am clear to sell any solution I want to any of their competitors. So yeah, they're pretty uninvolved in the day-to-day. They are phenomenal when it comes to funding development, moving RIB as a whole forward. Very supportive owner. They've been fantastic for our understanding of how information moves and how we can better serve our spec writing community in different ways by working with manufacturers, which is something that we're doing a lot of work on. Because the thing to, again, I don't mean to go off subject, but the thing to remember is everything we do, we try to make sure results in a better experience for our spec writer. Because at the end of the day, if our spec writers start leaving SpecLink, no one, it doesn't matter who owns us. It doesn't matter how
That's
much
true. Right?
manufacturer business, like we're done. Like that is our business, right? Everything else is possible because of that. So, that's why we vet people and we turn away, frankly, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of business in people that would like to be in SpecLink. And it's why we don't show favoritism, and it's why we don't, because we can't. And frankly, Schneider are a smart enough group of people that they're aware of that. And they've been fantastic, honestly. I don't think I've ever said that about an owner before, but we have a very good relationship with them on a business standpoint. They're extremely supportive, and they want our business to be successful.
So maybe, excuse me, next question is kind of might tie in with that. And in your 7 years that you've been with BSD and RIB, what was the moment that you kind of saw that trajectory change? Maybe the growth really started to take off, or maybe a user base, whereas maybe more, architects to start, kind of like engineers started to get on board. Was there a moment in your time here that you kind of said like, wow, like look what's happening over here?
Yeah, it's been, I kind of will describe it as like the old snowball rolling down a hill thing. The fact that we got into the cloud as early as we did, the fact that we went full subscription as early as we did, we were kind of ahead of a lot of firms in that sort of move. And it's definitely helped kind of our overall growth as a business, which means we've got it's much more reliable to forecast, which means we can make investments knowing that we'll have money to fund them, right? So for the first few years I was here, we invested every penny of profit, which we had none of, back into the program. We have certain rules now that we tend to follow that we're not quite as aggressive there, but we certainly up our investment every year into product development, into staffing. I can't, one thing I can't do is share numbers because we're just not that company. We're not allowed. But I will share that since I got here, our revenue is 4 times as big as it was, and in the last 2.5 years, our active, I don't care about customer counts and who has contracts with, I do care, but like that's not how you measure SpecLink, right? You measure SpecLink by active customers, people who are in the system using it. Our active customer and our active project counts have more than doubled in the last 2.5 years since the beginning of 2020.
Amazing.
So that's been that snowball effect starting to take effect. I'll tell you a silly story about that.
Okay.
So we're always trying to make sure performance is maintained, right? So always, that never leaves. Folks like AK and Nish are obsessed with that. Sometimes we do better than others, right? But we always try and make that as, click and activation, despite all the things that go on behind the scenes. You don't care about that, right? You need to keep moving with your projects. The most weird one I saw was when we first constructed SpecLink, we had a very small server that handled basically just people's credentials when you log in. And I don't think we ever conceived of the fact that we would have too many people logging in at the same time that we would bog an entire server down. So one of the things that happened a year ago was people were like, man, it's really slow right now. And we couldn't figure out why. And it was like, oh my God, we've got so many people using the product these days. We had to build a bigger server just to handle like people logging in, single sign-ons and everything else. So we never thought that was going to be a bottleneck. So it's been a fun ride to get to the point where your server handling 1,800 people logging in a 5-minute interval is a problem. So that was kind of an interesting little challenge that we faced. So we're always looking at those bottlenecks, right? Like what's slowing things down? How do we make it quicker? How do we make processes occur in the background so you don't have to wait for them? We've got, what's nice with SpecLink now is it's 8 years old. So we've got 8 years of debugging, 8 years of enhancing and future proofing, and we don't have to go through that. It's a pretty mature product at this point. So it's kind of fun to be at that point. I've lived all the way through that early stage through to this point. So it's been a fun ride.
I'm going to start to land this plane a little bit. We got about 10 minutes left. I got one more poll question, a question about international rates, subscription rates, and then one final thought to wrap it all up with. So the final question is, looking ahead, what excites you the most about the future of spec software? Are we most excited about automation and AI? Are we excited? Oh, there's the BIM. The BIM shot way up. Integration of BIM and drawings, stronger risk management and consistency, or easier collaboration across project teams? And I probably would have guessed this or the AI one. I'm surprised AI isn't jumping up as much, but it seems the demand on BIM is really running the table here. So I'll just give that another second, a couple more votes. Okay, so end poll. So we are a little over half are excited about the integration of BIM and drawings with their specs. Next by AI, and then risk management and collaboration across projects. So that is definitely something to keep in our pocket as well. And I know that's currently being worked on as well. I don't know. I don't want to say too much about that or not, but
yeah, no, I'm happy to share about that actually. So
okay,
yeah, of course that's on our radar, and it always has been. Realistically, historically, a lot of Revit models don't really have the level of detail that make them that useful for writing specs. Let's be honest about it. So, like harvesting from Revit models has not been a fantastic way to initiate specs in the USA. It's a little different in some other countries, I believe. But here, it's not been a great methodology. I think it's getting better. I think it's changing fairly quickly, actually. But we are certainly going down that path of constantly evolving that, and I think we just did a release on that recently, if I'm not mistaken. The thing I would add to that, though, is there's more than one ways to skin that cat. So the thing we are very actively getting involved in is trying to take specs and embed them in workflows when folks are doing research, right? So this was a pretty significant strategic decision on our part, right? It was to sort of grow our business in this way. So I'll keep it simple as I can and try and use real world examples. So if you're on USG if you're in Revit and you're using a USG plugin, you have an opportunity to click a button and say, match my specs to these 12 wall systems I just chose, or however many. You could match my specs to this roofing and floor system that I just chose, right? The floor and ceiling system that I just chose, to match what I've just chosen to put in my Revit model and give me that now. So I don't have to go research it twice. If you're on, frankly, working with Schneider and Layout Fast right now, you're starting to use Layout Fast to help your electrical designs on the engineering side. Same thing, right? We're trying to try and bring spec writing written by spec writers, right? Like actual people that write specs to create these proprietary specs in SpecLink. We're going to link that to as many things as we can, frankly, so that when somebody's doing research, when somebody is doing design work, we want to match it exactly to that design intent. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not naive enough to think it's going to be perfect. But if we can get you 80% of the way there, and then your expert spec writer steps in and says, okay, here's how we actually modify this spec, can actually use it. That's an efficiency approach that we're trying to drive in order to integrate more with Revit through a different angle, not purely harvesting a model, right? How do we just make it better to start with, right? Without having to bog the model down with tons of information. Let's just match it to a spec and give you a spec. It doesn't have to be in Revit at that point, right? So if we can get 100 manufacturers signed up to integrate spec written content by our spec team, resident in SpecLink, it's great for SpecLink users. It's great for non-SpecLink users, right? You don't have to be in SpecLink to benefit from that, and that's okay, right? Mm-hmm. Let's put high quality spec content that matches design intent everywhere we can put it, and that's a big part of our initiative right now in working with manufacturers to leverage tools like Revit, to leverage websites, to leverage wherever you are interacting with a manufacturer. We want to deliver spec content to match that design intent, whether you're a SpecLink user or not. If you're a SpecLink user, it's going to be a hell of a lot easier. Right. Because obviously we like our SpecLink users. But ultimately, if we can get you that content, then you're I'll say halfway there, right? You don't have to do everything twice. It's kind of the short answer. Right? So hopefully that answers that question. But it's not a single approach that we're taking. I think we think there's multiple ways of really making your life more efficient. Just whether you're using some sort of tool in the BIM space, or whether you're using another research tool as part of your project.
And I'm on the BIM team internally as well for any developments that are happening there. So if I'm sure we'll have an upcoming spec talk dedicated to that once sort of it's sort of put together and ready to share. Damon, I need a quick answer from you in like 10 seconds or less, and we're going to start to wrap it up. Is there any opportunity for subscriptions for Canadian users to be in Canadian dollars rather than relying on this unpredictable US exchange that Canadian subscribers have to use or to gamble on every time their subscription comes due?
That's a question for Drew, but I'm happy to follow up. I don't know is the short answer. That's purely a finance team driven decision on whether we take foreign currency or not. I don't honestly know the answer to that.
Okay.
Well, that was
easy. And that's from Korean.
I don't care. You can pay me in any way you want.
So just hockey bags full of loonies, Karine. Just drag it across the border and drop it off on their doorstep. We'll do that. Karine is a past guest on Spec Talk here, so that was a question coming from her. And we only have 3 minutes left, Damon. I still have a couple of slides I need to wrap up. So in as concise an answer as you can give us, what is the future? What do we have to look forward to in the next year or 2 or 10? What excites you about where we're headed?
I think, God, that's a hard one to do quickly, Dory. Holy cow! Almost F-bombed.
Well, we can run long, maybe. I don't know, but people are finishing their lunches.
I would say it's such an exciting place to be, right? It's an under-evolved area. There's so many opportunities for efficiency advancement, for making people's jobs easier. For really, I mean, look, what we want to do is enable experts to use their expertise. We waste so much expertise chasing information, finding 3-part spec brochures, copying and pasting crap. Like, let's get rid of like as much of that time as we can. If we can help you get rid of that, I mean, we work with some of the most expert, knowledgeable people in the world. I genuinely believe that. Like, these people that use our system are absolute experts, and let's use them as experts, not as editors of documents, right? Or I'll take these 7 documents and squish them together into one, right? Let's let them be experts, and really, like, one, it'll make their lives better. It'll ultimately make everyone better, right? Because you're using the tools that you have. So
I'll take that answer, Damon. I did not set you up for success on giving you like 30 seconds to answer the biggest question of the whole thing. So I will maybe there's a part 2 that we can do that, but we are going to start to wrap this up right now. So Damon, I just wanted to thank you sincerely for that's the wrong button. Hold on, there we go. I hit the wrong button. Bear with me, guys. So thanking Damon for coming on with us. I think this was a fantastic idea to get you on here and just be able to pick your brain and hear your thoughts and insights, and just kind of get a much higher level perspective of SpecLink than we usually cover, sort of in the weeds. So again, thank you very much for taking time. Yeah, Damon is working remote today, so he's able to jump on with us. He's got an extremely busy schedule. Just want to remind you guys that there will be a handful of us at the CSI National Conference. We'll be doing, Amy and I will be presenting Thursday morning at 9:15. Please stop by and check out our presentation. We'll also be we do have a spec talk that week, and we are working on some ideas on how maybe we want to do something live from the conference. Probably definitely want to do something live from the conference. So if you guys want to meet up and maybe be a part of a spec talk in Cleveland, we're kind of putting together a few things on how we can make that be an awesome experience. And by popular demand, Wednesday, October 1st is our next spec talk, and it is going to be about importing Word documents into SpecLink. We just had our new release of SpecLink launch on Saturday, and it includes a whole new upgrade to how we import Word docs into SpecLink. So it's smarter, it's capable of handling more volume at a time. And Matt Phillips and Alex Fulton are going to be on demonstrating that, showing us how to do it, showing us what's new, answering your questions, and just again, just like Damon said, just trying to make your spec writing lives so much easier in your day-to-day. So again, I just want to thank everybody for being here today. This was, I'm going to rank this as one of the funnest ones we've done. This was great engagement. Damon, you didn't drop an F-bomb for everyone, so maybe we'll have to do a part 2 where we can please the audience. But thank you, Alex, as well. This was always a good time to share the stage with you. And a lot of great comments coming in here today too. John, thank you. Samantha, I'll definitely see you in Cleveland. Karen, come say hi. Excellent. Yeah, everybody, you're very welcome. Oh, what a wonderful comment section. Great to hear from Damon Bridge. Thank you for the spec talk. This is great, guys. Love the community we've built here. Love seeing all your names, and really, honest to God, looking forward to meeting all of you guys in Cleveland if you're going to be there. So connect with us here on LinkedIn in Cleveland, and we will definitely see you guys on the next one. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.